In this module, which is a continuation of part 1, you will learn more about new features of ABAP introduced with release 7.4. Various other syntax enhancements you can learn from here, and also at the end you will be able to write programs with new features. Internal table operations using corresponding operator. It is basically used to transfer data from one internal table to another whose structures are not exactly same. Syntax is given here. Different alternatives are there. Here you can see the comparison between old and the new approach. First scenario. To transfer data from one internal table to another, there is no straightforward statement exits. You have to loop through the first internal table. Within the loop, transfer the data to the work area and then append that to the second internal table. But with the new approach, with the corresponding operator, this can be achieved. Within the brace, you have to mention the source internal table. If there is a condition, mapping clause to be used, and if a field have to be ignored, except clause is used. Finally, the resulting records are transferred to the internal table 2 given on the left side. Second scenario. To transfer data from one structure to another. With the old approach, move corresponding is used. With the new approach, corresponding operator can be used like this. With the first brace, the keyword base has to be used along with the target structure. Outside that, give the source structure. Finally, the resulting values are transferred to the target structure given on the left side. Here, structures are having only one layer, that is, it's not nested. In the case of nested structures, with the old way, you write statement like this. Move corresponding from structure 1 to the structure 2 and using expanding nested tables. But with the new way, using corresponding operator, you write the statement like this. Within the first brace, the keyword deep as well as base have to be mentioned, and along with base, the target structure has to be given. Outside that base, the source structure have to be given. This will compare the nested structures and transfer the date accordingly to the target structure 2, which is given on the left side. Building tables using for operator. The syntax is given here. If you want to build an internal table by reading data from different other multiple internal tables, you may use for operator. Consider the example given in the screen. The target internal table is LTS flight scar. Two source internal tables are there. This is similar to loop inside loop in the old approach. First for loop is the first loop and second for statement is the second loop. Line 1 and line 2 are the temporary work areas which you don't have to declare and will contain the respective structures. Finally, you can address the data read from them and transfer to the target structure. Since keyword value is used, this creates records in the final internal table. Another variation of for operator. The syntax is given here where you can see until or while clause can be used within the for statement. Consider the example given in the screen. On the left side, all the declarations are given, and on the right side, it is the main logic. Within the declaration, there is an internal table and a variable is given. In the main logic, the variable j is initialized and it is iterated till it reaches value 40. Meanwhile, it is also calculated some values and assigning to the final structure as well as internal table. This same logic we can replace with for operator. Observe the changes in the code here. The internal table GTI tab and the variable J is no more declared. For statement will take care of declaring J while using it. The variable GTI tab is declared on the go. The initialization, iteration, and the limit condition are taken care within for statement. Also, the assignment of values to the final structure. The value keyword will pass the final records to the internal table. Reduction operator reduce. An expression with the reduction operator reduce creates a result of a specified data type using the type of one or more condition expression. For example, with reduce, it is possible to do a mathematical operation grouping by the item of certain table. That is, instead of making loop inside loop between tables, you can use reduce to directly access the items you need to read. There are two variations. First one is table reduction. Consider the example given here. This example demonstrates a simple table reduction using reduce. The first for statement will capture the values from 1 to 10 into the internal table itab. Then a reduce statement is used to take the sum of all the values in the internal table itab and pass the value to the variable sum. After the for expression, the content of the table rows in itab is added to the local variable x, and this variable is provided as the result. Another variation of reduce, which is condition driven. This is the syntax. In this case, you can use a while or until condition within the expression. Consider the example given in the screen. Here, reduce statement is used to calculate the sum of values from 1 to 10 and passing the result to the variable LV result. Going into deep. Variable S is initialized to 0 and the value of variable I is iterated from 1 to 10 and the same is added to the variable S. Finally, the result is passed to the variable LV result and you get the output. Filter operator. This operator can be used on internal tables to filter the data or to retrieve subset of data into a new internal table. This is the syntax where it can filter values based on single values or a table of values. Consider the example given in the screen. Here, two internal tables are there. LTSRC is the main internal table, LTDSC is the final internal table. The row type of both the internal tables do not need to be identical. In the main logic, filter condition is used. Here, it will filter values in the internal table LTSRC based on a condition given in the where clause. So all the records matching with the condition will be passed to the final internal table LTTST. But there are some prerequisites that you have to take care of. First one is the internal table on which the filter operator is used must have at least one sorted key or hash key used for access. Also, the Boolean operators like not or equivalent cannot be used inside the where condition. The second scenario of filter, filter with tables. Filter with tables requires two internal tables. Consider the example given in the screen. The first internal table is the main one, which will contain the actual data on which filtering is applied. And the other internal table will contain the filter values used for filtering. And inside the filter statement, you provide the filter internal table based on which the values are filtered and passed to the final internal table. Group by statement. This is a variant of the statement loopet. This groups the rows of the internal table and executes a loop across the groups. Check the syntax given in the screen. Here, result holds the work area. In the condition, you can specify the where condition, just like the old way. In group key, there are two components, group size and group index. Group size will have the number of lines contained in the group for each loop. Group index will have the number of group for each loop depending upon ascending or descending. Ascending or descending sorts the groups by the group key in ascending or descending order before the group loop is executed inside this loop. Without members, this addition constructs groups, but there is no access to the rows of the groups in the group loop. Observe the example given in the screen. Here, a simple group by statement is used. Group key is char id, and for each char id, the total number of lines contained in the group is captured using group size, and the value is passed to the variable count. Finally, the result will look like this. Consider an example given in the screen. Here it is grouping and looping at the members. First loop and the group by statement groups based on career ID. That means it forms a subgroup with unique career ID. The second loop is looping at the group formed earlier, and then it is grouping on connection ID. Finally, the result will show like this, where you can see for each career ID, it gives the count, as well as within each career ID, another subcount is given for the individual connection ID. Optional and partially implemented interface method. You can now make the implementation of the interface methods optional. The addition default makes the explicit implementation of an interface method optional and defines a default behavior for calls of non-implemented methods. It cannot be used in classes but only in interfaces. When an interface method is defined with default and with the addition ignored, the behavior is the same as when it is implemented with an empty body when it is called. Calls of a non-implemented optional interface method defined using the addition fail, it will raise an exception of the class given in the screen. If this exception is not handled, the runtime error occurs. Another change on the interface is that in a test class, the interface methods can be implemented partially by mentioning the statement partially implemented. But please note, this is only for test classes. Functional methods. Earlier, a functional method was a method that returns a single result. That is, a method that has only returning parameter. The method can have importing parameters, but none of the other exporting parameters. With the new changes, exporting and changing parameters are introduced. You may call the functional method like this. where the returning parameter is received in a variable directly and other values are received in the normal way. Predictive calls. You can have a predictive call of a functional method using a returning parameter. Observe the example given in the screen. The method is having a returning parameter of type I. In the if condition, the condition will be true if the result of my method, which is the returning parameter, is not an initial value. Else, it will execute the else part. By now, you have seen most of the new ABAP changes. Please watch the demo videos for more understanding. Also, complete the exercises and start incorporating the same in your real-time objects. All the best.